fans or no fans, Sam, you know, when the racing starts, you've got to appreciate it. And so on that note,
Ooh, okay. I'm interested to hear some of your ones later. If we're going to be trying to transition all your runners, because there's some odd names in there.
All right, I'll try and do it.
I earmarked a great horse I cannot wait to bring up.
Okay, well, I'll try and transition for every race by mentioning a horse featuring. How's that? But so that kicks us off. Appreciate It is the favorite for the Supreme Novices Hurdle.
Whoa, come on, Eddie. Do it justice. The Sky Bet Supreme Novices Hurdle.
I need to. No sponsors here. No free sponsors. It is the around 5
like
to 4.
I like that climb
it's
down.
Not free. They pay tons of money to sponsor that.
I love it. No sponsors, no free sponsors. I love the climb down.
We can tell you what we'll sell naming rights to these races to anyone else. You can send us money, and then we'll refer to it as
the Sky Bet Big Chill prediction of the Sky Bet Supreme Novice kind of thing.
No, we'll be like the Hyundai Supreme Novices Hurdle, but it will only be known as that here. So Appreciate It is the 5 to 4 favorite, around 5 to 4. Are you going with favorites here, or are you looking elsewhere?
I really like this first race, and the reason I like it because it's a really high quality race. But in the past, Willie Mullins's winners have got me off to a good start in this one as well. So one of my best Cheltenhams I had was when Champagne Fever won a number of years ago, and I was there, and it just set everything off right. It was only like a 3-4 to 1 shot, but it was just such a good start because some of the races that come after it are quite short priced. So it's a really good start to it. So for me, Willie Mullins does really well in this. Willie Mullins always has a good Cheltenham, and that's what I see happening. I think Appreciate It will win. I think it's the best horse in the race. I think it lost the bumper last year at Cheltenham, so it's accustomed to the ground. A bumper's a little bit different to novices, and don't see a reason why it's not favorite. So yeah, got the favorite here.
It's worth noting, even if it did lose last year at the Cheltenham Festival, the fact that it has previously raced at the Cheltenham Festival is a very good sign for it in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So a few facts for you: 12 of the last 12 winners were 5 or 6 years old. 10 of the last 12 winners had won their previous race prior to Cheltenham. So Appreciate It ticks that box. 5 of the last 12 winners had previously raced at least one time at Cheltenham. So again, Appreciate It ticks that box. And 11 of the 12 winners had previously raced at least 4 times in a hurdles race, which again, Appreciate It has that going for it, having won every race this year in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got 2 Grade 1 wins at this basically the same distance, just a little shorter, like half furlong shorter. The only thing that kind of worried me was I think the third favorite, Ballyadam, it beat 2 races ago by like 15 lengths. And then the last race, it beat it by about 3 lengths. So are the other horses kind of catching up, and was Appreciate It just in good form early in the year, and now it's starting to level off? That's a little bit of a concern, but it still did win by, 3-4 lengths, and looked to be traveling. I went back and watched the race. It looked to be traveling pretty well. So, yeah, I think Eddie said it does tick a lot of the right boxes, and this could be a big Mullins week at Cheltenham. He's got a lot of big favorites, and this could be a great way to start it off.
The thing with Mullins as well, though, is in these like big card races where the field's quite big, usually the kind of second horse he's got or third horse do well. And obviously Ballyadam is that second horse for Mullins. So he does have this weird precedent of like, is Ballyadam not? I thought Ballyadam was a Mullins horse, but if it's not, I was going to say that whatever, I can't remember Mullins' second horse in the race though, but he does have this like notoriety of the second horse in the betting against his favorites doing pretty well when it comes to the festival. So Mullins gets a lot of winners, but sometimes it's not the winner you expect.
Ballyadam is trained by Henry de Bromhead.
My bad. Can't remember the next Mullins horse, but yeah, I remember
the
seeing
next
that
Mullins
stat.
horse in the betting would be
Blue Lord. And Yeah, Blue
12
Board,
to
10
12 to 1. Yeah. Right. Now, you've already said that you're going to be missing the Cheltenham Roar, Sam. But one of the other things that Cheltenham is famous for is the Guinness Village. And there will obviously be no Guinness Village this time around, but there will be a Captain Guinness in the Arkle, currently priced around 14 to 1. Are you going for an outsider, or we have another heavy favorite here in Shiskin, who is around 10 to 11? Going for the favorite or looking elsewhere?
I'm looking elsewhere, but not to the value you're getting. So I'm going to Energumene. I believe that's how you pronounce it anyway, Energumene. So it's a 9 to 4 shot. And truth be told, until about 3 weeks ago, Shiskin was probably the banker of the festival at that point. And Energumene then went to the Irish Arkle, so the equivalent of the Irish Arkle at the Dublin Festival a few weeks back, and absolutely devastated it. Like, actually posted a faster time than Chacun Pour Soi in the same race the previous year. So that just threw a complete spanner in the works.
I gotta get you on the French pronunciation there. We gotta Chacun Pour Soi, but we gotta go.
All right, there we go.
It will come up later.
Clocked a faster time, and I just think Shiskin was a banker until that happened. But I think there's value in a 9 to 4 shot that's just done what it's done. So I'm going to go with that, Energumene.
Yeah, I'm actually with Sam here again, another Mullins horse. It has dominated its last three races this year, all of its races. I mean, winning by like 18, 20 lengths. The other fact that I found was that, so this is, Eddie didn't say it, is the Sporting Life Arkle Challenge Trophy Novice Chase. Mullins has won 4 of the last 6. And he knows how to train horses for these races. And I really think off the back of that last race, it was super impressive. And I think it could give Shiskin a run. And I think there's a little more value there. So I'm going to go with, I pronounce it Enigmine.
I think everyone pronounces it differently. Literally every race that it goes out for, you hear it slightly differently. I've heard Energumene. I've heard just basically every possible twist on that name that you can have. So we'll go by however it's officially said at Cheltenham, I suppose, in our wrap up. But that will be one thing for listeners to keep an ear out for. I think Shiskin is a likely winner here. 11 of the last 12 winners were 6 or 7. 11 of the 12 last winners had won their last race prior to Cheltenham. 11 of the 12 last winners had run at least one time prior to Cheltenham, and 12 last winners had run at least 4 times over hurdles. Again, Shiskin checks all of these boxes. I think, that being said, my tip is not going to be Shiskin, just because I think with some doubts there, I think that All Mankind at 13 to 2 as an each way bet, I think it's got a chance of winning it, and there's value there at each way because I think it will definitely be in the running to place.
Waiting for the transition.
Well, sometimes when you're waiting for things, it's just better to be happy-go-lucky and relaxed. And with that in mind, worth mentioning that Happy-Go-Lucky is the favorite for the Ultima Handicap Chase, the 3rd race of the day at Cheltenham. This is the most open race we've talked about so far, so all the other ones have had relatively heavy favorites, but here you see joint favorites at 11 to 2, Happy-Go-Lucky and Lieutenant Rocco. And then you have one for the team at 9 to 1, I Write at 10 to 1, Cocoa Beach at 10 to 1, and Iscari at 10 to 1, and all the rest are 12 to 1 or bigger. Frank, do you want to, where are you leaning this time?
I'm leaning towards a no bet on handicap chases.
The field.
They are my nightmares. Flat racing, big handicap fields scare me. You add the chase into the mix, and it's like just a crapshoot for me. I've never had good luck with any of the handicap races. So this is probably one that I would kind of stay away from unless we hit the first 2 races. Then, maybe feel it out a little bit and throw some money on a 15, 20 to 1. But yeah, not for me.
So your tip is pass.
My tip is keep your powder dry, as Eddie would say.
Well, I think this is one of those races, right? You've possibly, it's a lot of the times you have had relatively heavy favorites to start Cheltenham off. And so maybe either you've backed your favorite backer, you've gone 2 for 2 on the first races, you got a little bit of money in your pocket, and you feel like now you can take a gamble on the handicap, or you're a favorite backer. The 2 odds-on favorites have been turned over in the first 2 races. Your pocket's feeling really light, and you feel like you have to take a gamble on the handicap to try and make the money back. So all roads point to people betting on this race, no matter how.
Looking like a true gambler. I love it.
Yeah, it was like, whatever excuse I need to gamble, I will.
A true degenerate rationale.
Hard to have a strong pick on this one, I will say, just because of the nature of handicap chases. But I do think that Lieutenant Rocco, based on the weights, might be the pick. So it's going to be my tip, but I definitely wouldn't say it with any true confidence. Mostly a stay away for me. But okay. One of those races where, do you know what? If you just pick a horse based on the name, it might be the move.
That will come up at some point. That certainly will come up, especially with the handicaps. So yeah, like you say, first handicap, toughest one. But interestingly enough, as we've said, the Irish do really well at Cheltenham, but they've only won 2 of the past 52 for this one. They just don't target it. And I find that quite interesting, considering the variety of Irish raiders that come over. But so for me, taking that into account, I kind of eliminated them, which obviously means this will be 3rd out of 53 that they get. But I've gone for I Right. I think Scottish trained, but also the last 2 outings it had, it won the, it had good kind of silver places, second places in the Ladbroke Trophy at, and I can't remember the other race at Newbury. But yeah, it had some good seconds in good fields at Doncaster and Newbury, some good grade racing. But also it did it over both good and soft ground. There's a bit of the UK is meant to have rain over the weekend, but there's a bit of uncertainty about whether parts of it actually will. So they're not sure whether Cheltenham's going to dry up or go softer. But I think because of that good soft variation that it's had in 2 good places, I think there's decent value at, what is it, like 10 to 1, you said, I think. So
it's around 10 to 1. Yeah. You can probably get it a little bit bigger in some places, but the official sponsor of the Big Chill podcast, Bet365, has it as at 10 to 1.
And obviously you get 4 places, I'm imagining, with this one as well. So even each way, quarter of the odds. You
get 4 places. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you might actually get 5 places with some bookmakers, because they do the special offers at times, but standard is 4. Now, it is worth saying, for any big chill listeners out there, the horse to bet on in this race is undoubtedly a big price. At 66 to 1, Soupy Soups has to be the move for any big chill listeners.
That is a good one.
I did not see that.
Well,
I mean, there's a point with a handicap where you just kind of stop, right?
Yes. I mean, unlikely, right? But hey, 66 to 1 each way. You put 10 on it, you still have a bit of fun if it somehow manages to sneak its way into contention.
Yeah, Cheltenham actually has been one of my biggest wins of a longest price shot. I won un artiste at 40 to 1 once. So
wow, you're gonna have a 66 to 1 winner in the 3rd race. So think about that.
Shouldn't have really thought about that.
I guess, and if I had to pick,
if I have to put in a pick, I guess, right? I'll say Far Class.
Okay,
that's gonna be my pick. It's
one of those horses that I feel like seen around forever, but
exactly. And always seems to be like slightly in the mix. So at 12 to 1 might even be a decent each way.
Right. Now, at this point, if you had a few winners or if you had a few losers, you might be going in to the Champion Hurdle looking for a little bit of magic. And it's fitting then that Abracadabras is racing in the Champion Hurdle and is 10 to 1, 4th priced favorite. Honeysuckle is a favorite at 2 to 1. Goshen is 2nd favorite at 100 to 30. And Epatante is same price, 100 to 30. Sam, where are you going?
It's race of the day, isn't it? This one. It's such a good 3-horse race there, and there's still good quality behind them as well. But it's such a good race. It's one of my favorite days of Cheltenham are the first two. A really good hurdling on them from the days of like Hurricane Fly, etc. This has always been one of my best races. But I'm going with Honeysuckle, and the reason being is that it had a near perfect ride a few weeks back in the Dublin Racing Festival. What I really like about it is that the last time out in that hurdle race in Leopardstown, it was probably its best race. And I feel like with every win, this horse gets better. Its winning is better. It's more powerful over the hurdles. It just comes across always at a better horse. And something going for it as well in this race is that it gets a mare's allowance. So it gets £7 on the others, which is a big deal when it comes to such a good high quality race like this. So I think 2-1's good value, but it's a hell of a race.
Yeah, Eddie still refusing to say the full name of the Unibet Champion Hurdle Challenge Trophy.
They are not an official sponsor, so they don't get any airtime.
So Eddie, my first question to you is, does experience at Cheltenham count when you unseat the rider at the last up 10 lengths? Or is that bad experience?
I mean, that's the storyline of this, right? I mean, there's a number of interesting storylines, but Goshen's return to Cheltenham after being the heartbreak story of last year. So for anyone who didn't see it, with a race in hand approaching the last, just clipped the final hurdle and more kind of lost his balance, and what was quickly but looked very slowly fell off the horse, and then proceeded to have a mental breakdown at the side of the track. In what is a very sad story for a horse trained by his father, not someone who has that many kind of notable wins, like a successful trainer, but not up there with the kind of superstars of the training world. So does it count for something? I guess so. My concern, I'll say before you say.
Well, I remember another horse that unseated a rider at Cheltenham and then came back and didn't fare so well the next year.
the thing with Goshen that would concern me, obviously its last time out, it was extremely impressive. But prior to that this season, it has looked decidedly average. So you are rolling the dice here as to whether or not the last time was a return to form and the power that it once was, or if you're dealing with either an inconsistent horse or at least a somewhat spent horse. And for that reason, I'm staying away from Goshen, but it would be nice to see it win. And so before you, I'll just say my tip here is Epatante, defending champion, a horse that's really not put a foot wrong at any time in sort of recent history, has the best turn of foot of any of these. So the ground, which Sam touched on, it's obviously not going to want it to be sort of super wet over the weekend and soft underfoot on Tuesday. But assuming the ground stays relatively decent, I'll be siding with Epatante.
Oh, there's division in the big chill.
Yeah, I will not be siding with Epatante. I also agree. I would like to see Goshen win. So last time out, it did look back to form. It was 20 lengths winner to a Song for Someone. And then this is where you can kind of start to draw some form lines. Is Song for Someone beat Silver Streak last time out. And Silver Streak is the horse who beat Epatante. So if you're reading through the form lines there, then Goshen should be a 30 length winner to Epatante. That is not going to happen. But if it does, that'd be really awesome, because that would be a bet I just missed. But with that in mind, you know, the Epatante story kind of scares me, because it did lose a pretty ordinary horse probably last time out. The thing that scares me with Goshen is it's actually, like Sam said, it's conceding £7 to both Epatante and Honeysuckle. Whereas if you went off of form ratings, it should actually be getting a few pounds from Honeysuckle. So that's a big change. We're probably looking at like a 10 pounds shift there. So with that, I'm going to stick to being really boring and go with Honeysuckle, because it's done nothing wrong. It goes, you know, race in, race out, and wins. And I think Goshen could be a challenge, but I think giving up that weight might end up costing him at the end.
Well, hopefully by this point you've had a few winners. But if you haven't, it's still worth persisting tirelessly in your efforts. And a word for that is indefatigable, who is 16-1 to win the Mayor's Hurdle. The favorite is Concertista at 11-10. You have Roxana at 3-1. Dame de Compagnie at 11-2. Black Tears at 10-1. Great White Shark at 12-1, and all the rest 20-1 or bigger.
I think you'll
Frank.
find it's Dame de Compagnie.
It's not, but nice try. Frank, where are you going on this race?
This is a tough one.
Ooh, is it?
Yeah, that's the thing, is eventually, it's another favorite I like, and it's another Mullins favorite that I like. Although Honeysuckle isn't a Mullins, but still, it's a lot of favorites and it's a lot of Mullins. And that's either going to be a really great day like we had in Cheltenham, which is now about 5 years ago, that Eddie and I had with a back-to-back-to-back Mullins day, or it could be disastrous. So Concertista, I think, is a well-deserved favorite, and I think that would be my pick. But this would be a race, if I'm winning on the day, I throw some money on it. If I'm losing, I probably just put some money on the favorite then, because the favorites haven't been winning, so eventually they need to win. So with Eddie's logic, I'll go with that.
I'm going to side with the favorite. I actually think this is one of the favorites based on the kind of body of work and all the form, looks like one of the most solid on the card. Won last year at Cheltenham easily. Was maybe the most impressive performance of Cheltenham last year. Has done nothing wrong in the 2 races it's had this year. And for that reason, I see no reason why I would go elsewhere. Roxana has been impressive at times. Part of what puts me off is just the running style looks a bit awkward. And I never really like that in a horse. It just, even if they win, it just makes me feel uncomfortable when you're looking at them and they don't look settled. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the favorite here.
Yeah, same. It's Concertista for me. One of the reasons is just how dominant Mullins is with the Mayor's Hurdle. So this race was Quevega's, wasn't it, for like 6 years in a row, and that was a hell of a mare. No, I can't say that often, but there you go, hell of a mare. And I just like the fact that this race leads on to awesome things. Like, look at Honeysuckle, who won it last year as well. And like Eddie said, like Concertista won it so well last year, really tip them to win well again and have a really bright future. But for me, Mullins is just so dominant. Like, yeah, 6 of the wins were Quevega, but of the 13 runnings of this race, 11 of them have been won by the Irish, and 9 of those 11 by Mullins, and 6 of those 9 Quevega. So yeah, I'm going with the stats here, but also I'm going with the best horse. So Concertista for me.
So Roxana, you guys are putting up the red light?
Might
No
be
bet.
if it wins.
Yeah.
Now, if Sam has picked out a bunch of winners so far and you're following his advice, by the time you get to this race, you might think that he has heavenly powers, and you might even start calling him Saint Sam, who is the second favorite in the, to give it its full name, Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle.
What is Boodles?
The Boodles. I don't know what Boodles is. I just saw it and laughed as well.
And you have Hooghry at 4-1, Saint Sam 5-1, Bustleton at 8-1, Coltor at 9-1, Riviere de Tel at 10-1, Glorious Zoff at 11-1, Cabot Cliffs at 12-1, and Nassalam and Zoffenien at 12-1. Now, you might go higher than this in prices. There are bigger prices there that might still tempt you. Very open race, perhaps the most open race we've actually looked at so far, and then I think there's nearly 20 horses you could make a strong case for. Saint Sam, are you going with your namesake or looking elsewhere?
So at some point, like you said earlier for the Ultima, you just have to look at names, and Saint Sam's one of them. So I was like, you know what? It's a complete crapshoot of a race, but also in a way, this race is a kind of shitter version of the Triumph that's run a couple of days later. So a lot of entries of horses that just don't cut the Triumph go into this race. So you take that into account as well. So I was going Saint Sam just on the fact that it's my name, but reading into it, Mullins obviously is a bit of a tick. Except Mullins can't win every race, so that's a bit of a problem. But what I liked about Saint Sam is that in its past runnings, it had done decently against Triumph horse candidates in those races. So it had done pretty well against horses that are going to be in a better class of race at Cheltenham. So after kind of seeing the data that backed up just the fact that it's called Saint Sam, I'm taking Saint Sam. So it's about 5-1, you said, right?
Yeah, around there. This is where I start to feel uncomfortable, because the big question mark for a lot of these races at Cheltenham, right, is how are Gordon Elliott or former Gordon Elliott horses going to adapt to being with new trainers or in new circumstances, unfamiliar yards, unfamiliar routines. And I am going to be picking Riviere de Tel, who is a Gordon Elliott horse. Kind of fits a lot of the molds that Gordon Elliott has made a living off of, which is taking horses from France, taking them to Ireland, and then taking them to England to win big races. Ran very impressively in December in Ireland, and I think at 10-1, it's worth taking a chance on as an each way bet.
Boodles is Britain's leading retailer of fine diamond jewelry since 1798.
And if you win enough, you can go and shop there.
Yeah, you can get oodles and...
You can get oodles of boodles.
Oodles of boodles. Wow, what a way to just absolutely dumb down their class.
So I'm going to go with... I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. Is it Hugri?
I believe so, yeah. Hugri, I think. I mean, who knows? Because it's one of those things I think that's how you should say it, but then people obviously don't intend for it always to be said in the way that it's supposed to be said. So who knows? Who knows?
Hooks Gris.
Hooks Gris. I'm going Huox Gris. It's been pretty well backed. So it started off at about 20-1 when it first came out, and it's dropped now into, I think, about 6-1. It was a bumper winner in France, and then they dropped it into grade 1 in its last race, and it was pretty well beaten, got third, but, was pretty well beaten down. But, I think that kind of showed how highly they thought of this horse. And I think dropping it back down now into this race from grade 1 is going to, could be an indicator, and it's off of a decent mark. So I think it's got a pretty good chance.
There was it's not a bad shout, because also Paul Nicholls, someone we haven't spoken about much throughout the festival, does well in this race. And I also saw a stat that ex-French horses do well in this race as well, and that's one of them. So Paul Nicholls and ex-French.
So is Riviere de Tel. But
there we go.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see. Now, final race of the day, and our next destination is the National Hunt Chase, in which next destination is the fourth price 8-1 favorite. This is an interesting one in the sense that typically this is a race that is run using amateur riders, but because of COVID rules this year, there will be no amateur riders at Cheltenham, and so it will be professionals taking the reins. So a little bit of a different look than most people will be used to. I think for most people, maybe there's a positive, because it removes some of the unknown factors that they might otherwise feel, in that you're always taking a little bit of a gamble on amateur rides. Now we've got Royal Pagaille at 6-4, depending on how you want to say it. You got Galvin at 5-2, Iscaria 10, 7-1, next destination 8-1, Lord Royal 10-1, Cocoa Beach 10-1, and all the rest 12-1 or bigger. Sam, what's your final pick of the day?
Yeah, the kind of having professional jockeys makes it a little bit different. But this is a real slog of a race, because it's at the end of the day, if the ground's already going to be cut up as well, this is a 3 mile 5 over fences in cut up ground on the old course as well. So it's sharper as well. So there's going to be more tighter areas of that bog. It's going to be a real slog. And for that reason, when I start looking at some of the favorites, I was looking at the weights involved in that. And there's some that kind of scare me a little bit there. So like Royal Pagal or Pagali has got.
I'm not sure because some people even say Pigalle, like the area of Paris.
Oh yeah.
But it's not spelt in the same way, although occasionally it appears in that manner. So I don't know. Again, it's one of those horses that you just, every time you tune in to watch it, you hear a slightly different variation on the name. So I'd say go with, well, let's agree on
we'll go
Pigalle,
Royal Pagal,
I guess.
Royal Pagal.
And then, then we'll see.
I'm not backing that because it's got almost a stone additional weight. Like it's a really heavily restricted horse in the weights, and I think that's going to be tough based on what I just said with like potential ground cut. It's going to be a tough old one. I haven't actually gone with too many outsiders in this. I've only picked like I Right at 10-1, and the rest have actually been fairly close to favoritism. So I started to look a little bit further down, which is a little bit dangerous, but I do like Cocoa Beach at 10-1. I think you'd mentioned 10-1 anyway. I think I saw it at 10-1. But again, I like people with good form going in, like really soon going into the jumps. And it won a good race at Gowran Park a few weeks back. And look, it's not the best race in the day, but I do think it won a pretty tidy race at Gowran Park. And for that reason, at 10-1, and the fact that it's pretty nicely put in the weights, I'll take that.
This for me is a hashtag redemption. So I remember last year, Galvin was a joint favorite and I bet on it and it got second and kind of got, I think if I remember the race correctly, it was in the lead and got basically beat at the end and kind of got passed through on the last few furlongs. So I'm going to stick with the redemption story. Eddie likes to say, if you've raced at Cheltenham, it's worth something. So I'll go with Galvin on this one.
I like the idea that I've kind of copyrighted the principle of previous experience at Cheltenham is useful, but I'm willing to take the credit on that one.
And this was a Gordon Elliott horse that's no longer now a Gordon Elliott horse.
And Elliott has historically done pretty well in this race, but that's always hard to judge because what that typically means is that Elliott has 3 or 4 runners in a pretty open race and one of them wins. Now that wraps up day 1. I guess before we move on to day 2, do you have a bet of the day for day 1?
Do you just mean like bet of the day in terms of like most value or banker of the selections we have? Like which one is strongest for?
One horse you're willing to risk your reputation on.
Oh my God. Okay. Reputational. I really would like to say Honeysuckle but the problem with that is the class of competition around it. So I've probably got to go Concertista. I'd probably go with that one. I think it's a bit of a safer favorite, but I do think Honeysuckle is like, I feel more strongly about that horse, but Concertista, I feel like if I'm risking something on it, I'd go Concertista.
I'll agree with you, not on the Honeysuckle aspect, because obviously I picked Epatante for that race, but I'm going to say Concertista is my kind of banker of the day if I had to pick one.
I would go Appreciate It just because I don't think there's a lot else racing in that race. There's probably only 1 or 2 other horses that could give it a shot.
So Frank's reputation might be gone after the
first
race of the festival.
Day 1.
Yep.
Everyone's going to be like 27 after this.
Because I think that's always part of it. You know, if you have a banker, it's not only the horse you're most confident in, but it's how confident are you that someone else could win that race. And I think I agree with the Honeysuckle. I do think Honeysuckle can win, but you know, you're racing Epatante and Goshen, and those are 2 great horses. So you can't be that confident, even though Honeysuckle's had a great year. So I'd rather kind of do what you guys are doing. Maybe like a Concertista, as a clear standout horse where there's not much else competition. And I think Appreciate That also checks those boxes.
The big
makes sense, I think. Yeah. Maybe it's the Big Chill double there. You throw those 2 horses together. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Probably a move I will be making on the day.
The Big Chill Mullins double.
Yes, true. And we will be just as excited and happy as he is if they both win. Now, day 2, perhaps you've lost everything day 1. You're living out in the wild. You're having to watch a bunch of Bear Grylls episodes just to know how to survive now that you're homeless.
How are you watching them if you're homeless?
You still got a phone.
Okay.
You know, you've made
with good enough service that you can stream Bear Grylls.
Well, it's midway through the month, so you unusually were kicked out of your house on the 14th. Strange move to be evicted midway through, but you've got cell phone coverage for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, phew! My data plan continues for 2 more weeks.
Exactly, and they might even give you a grace period. Maybe you're getting 3 weeks. So you've still got that. And Bear Grylls is 10-1 in the first race of the day, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. Bob Ollinger is 2-1 favorite. Gaillard de Menil is 5-2. Brave Man's Game 3-1. Appreciated is priced at 9-2 for this rate, but you'd have to assume if it appears in the first race of the day on day 1, it's not reappearing on the first race of the day at day 2. Although many horses do race twice at the Cheltenham Festival, unusual for them to be back-to-back days, especially when they are high-profile horses. That's more something you see for the kind of a lower class. And then you have Blue Lord at 16-1. Where are you going here, Sam?
It's a tough opener, but it's St. Patrick's Day, and the Irish tend to love dominating on St. Patrick's Day. So there's usually there's some interesting winners in this one, actually. When you've looked at the past, like Sam Crow, Envoy Alan, Forheen won as well. So there's some good pedigree with this race in terms of horses that come out of it. I was going to go with Gaillard de Menil, or Mesnil. You know what? Let's just say it literally. So again, it just follows a similar logic, like recent good wins in good company at Leopardstown. But what I like about it is that it's improved quite a bit as well. Like it's maiden really well, stepped up, won a grade 1 really well. So there's a lot to improve about this horse as well. And I think 5-2 on a horse that would have been geared towards this and is showing good improvement from a maiden to a grade 1 quickly. There's good value there. So I think you mentioned 5-2. So that's my tip.
And it's worth noting you're tipping a 5-2, and we've said that we've maybe edged towards a large number of favorites, and that's room for concern. This is a race that has typically been dominated by horses higher up in the betting. 7 of the last 10 winners have been priced at under 5-1. So, and only 1 has been in double figures. So it is a race that, even though it on paper can often look rather open, it is dominated by some of the favorites. That being said, that might be a little bit misleading based on some of the caliber of horses that have appeared in the past with the likes of Sam Crow and Forheen. And so this year might be a little bit different. Frank, are you staying at the top of the market or looking further down?
Slightly top, I guess. You know, Eddie, you say you're down on your luck, you're on the streets. You know what? It takes a really brave man to walk back into that Paddy Power and place a bet when you don't have a roof to sit under. So I'm going to go with Brave Man's Game in the first race. Off of a grade 1 win in a convincing fashion. It's improved every start this year. The speed and the form figures on its last race are really good. It's got a higher rating than any of the other horses in the actual race, including both of Mullins' horses, both the Irish horses. So I'll stick with Brave Man's Game. And it's good in any type of weather, good or soft. So I think that, with ground always being a concern at Cheltenham, it can go on either.
Well, I said it's the smart move is to stay at the top of the market. So I'm going to round off our picks by saying I'm going to stick with Bob Ollinger at 2-1. Interesting in the sense that Blue Lord, who's 16-1 for this race, kind of franked some of the form for Bob Ollinger by finishing just behind Ballyadam and Appreciate It last time out. So in a sense, if that form stays true, and assuming that Appreciate It and Ballyadam run well on day 1, then Bob Ollinger will look even better in this race. So on that premise, I'm going to stick with the 2-1 favorite. I guess worth saying, if you do have a strong opinion on this race, if you're edging towards one of those first three in the betting, probably worth doing it before Tuesday, or even as early as possible, just because I assume assuming Appreciated does drop out, that all of those prices will shorten slightly. So it might be worth trying to get it on as soon as you hear this, if you do want a little bit of a flutter on that race. Now, this is where we're going to have to see the latest exhibition of the Brown Advisory Novices Chase, where we have another heavy favorite at Monkfish at 8-13. This is another interesting race in the sense that several of the horses towards the top of the betting are earmarked to run elsewhere, in that you have Royal Pigalle at 5-1, second favorite. Latest Exhibition, who is also potentially in a race on day one, at 8-1. Next Destination, who's also potentially in a race at joint third favorite, 8-1. So it's a difficult market to look into, but clearly Monkfish is the class horse in the race. So it's a question of, is this the Cheltenham banker of the day, or do you want to take it on?
That's exactly it. This is the Cheltenham banker, maybe of the festival, because when you look at Monkfish, like, it's a previous Cheltenham winner. It's won its last 6, and the way it's won its last 6 as well has just been insanely impressive. But also, then you break down its competition. So you look at kind of Royal Pigalle, Latest Exhibition, Next Destination. So Royal Pigalle, even though it's the Hunt Chase favorite and they think it's going to the Hunt Chase, the connections have said they may target the Gold Cup. So interestingly enough, it doesn't sound like they're talking about this race. So you eliminate that horse. Then you've got Latest Exhibition, and Monkfish beat it in its last 2 outings convincingly. So again, that kind of 8-1 against an 8-13 kind of feels correct. And then you're looking at essentially the rest, but I can't look past Monkfish here at like almost at all. I just think it's a pretty imperious jumper, and it's only going into this festival strong. The only problem I have is that Mullins will lose at some point. And I seem to be going hell for leather with him, and it becomes a problem. But ultimately, you see a good horse, you call a good horse, you bet on a good horse. So I think this may be the banker of the festival. So I'm going Monkfish all the way here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you've done a pretty good job there of analyzing the situation. It's always worrying betting on the horse that will be in every single person's double or treble or accumulator for the day or the week, and just that historically one of those loses, and that it's the kind of normally the silent Cheltenham crowd as they watch the upset of the day happen and everyone throwing their betting slips into the air. I guess we'll be saved of that sight this time, and maybe we'll be saved because Monkfish will storm home in the way that you'd expect it to. But it's a short price, but it's hard to pick. It's one of those where not only do I really like Monkfish and have been impressed by everything it's done, it's just hard to pick the horse that's going to beat it, even if you think it's going to be a little bit sort of off color on the day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the second reference to Annie Power, exactly what Eddie's saying. Same silks, same trainer, same odds-on price, and then tickets in the air, computers on the floor. It's a nightmare. But yeah, the issue right now is it's gone already to 8-13, and who knows what's even going to go off at. So as a single, I don't know. I always hesitate with taking such low odds on jumps races on a single, just because that issue of the fall is just always there compared to like a flat race.
It is. I'd actually be interested to see the numbers, because I do get what you're saying. There is a greater degree of risk and uncertainty that they need the complete round. But my gut feeling is that odds on horses in over hurdles or fences are actually safer bets than odds on horses over flat. Like, that's just kind of my feeling, that assuming you have a reliable jumper, the additional time, like the length of the race, allows for there to be positioning doesn't really matter as much, and something can kind of go wrong over the course of the race and it's not race over. Whereas if you're talking about a 7 furlong race, you miss the break, or just something get caught and sort of boxed out at some moment, and it's game over.
Yeah, and you know what? You're probably right. I'm sure that the stats actually back that, but just mentally for me, it's a tough thing to get over, especially because we've had such bad luck on some of those before. But I think Monkfish is a cut above the rest here. I have to give a shout out on an each way to Dickie Diver at 20 to 1.
What were you going to say? Dick Diver.
Look, and we know full well that, Frank, there's every chance that Monkfish is going to be the last horse in a bet for you of day one favorites with Monkfish to try and round it off on day two. Every chance of this happening. Maybe with Barcelona also on Monday night, like some kind of accumulator.
Oh yeah, like
those
a
lines.
Portuguese Benfica or Porto will be playing as well.
I think Barcelona are playing Monday night, so you got some kind of bet like that is probably going to be in play, or like fingers crossed is going to be in play, because otherwise it just means that day one was really bad. But so fingers crossed for Monkfish. And I tell you what, if Monkfish doesn't win, heaven help us, because we will be going into the Coral Cup, which is a wide open race, a 7-1 favorite with Grandois. Heaven help us, as mentioned, is 20 to 1. I don't even know where it figures on the betting. Probably 20 to 1, 12th favorite.
It's probably favorite. It's probably favorite.
Not far off. It might be by the time the race goes off. Just so many. Hard for me to give a breakdown of the betting. You've got Kashari 8 to 1, the Shunter 11 to 1. You Raised Me Up 11 to 1. Botox has at 12 to 1. Great White Shark, who we've already seen in some feature in some of the other races, at 12 to 1. Monte Cristo 14 to 1. And all bigger. I mean, just a huge number of horses all the way up to 50 to 1. So do your best, pick a winner. Frank, Monkfish has just stormed home for you. Your accumulator's just landed. You've got some money in your account, which, even if you're picking the favorite, you're looking at 7 to 1 here. How are you looking to just turn a good day and a half at Cheltenham into a great 2 days?
Oof, that would be a really nice feeling to go into this. I'm going to go with You Raised Me Up. Won its last two. It's progressive. I still think it's got some room in the weights. Sitting at right now 12 to 1. I think that's decent. I also kind of like Monte Cristo, but I think that's because I like Monte Cristo sandwiches. I really have no real reason to take Monte Cristo. But You Raised Me Up has won its last two, and I think still has some in hand in the weights. So I think that's going to be my bet once I cash out my Monkfish win. Because Monkfish raised me up. So,
Sam?
This is probably the hardest race at Cheltenham to find a winner, or at least try and find like some semblance of value in it. And so you start looking at several reasons as to why. You start looking at potential weights. You start looking at who's a good runner in the ground. You start looking at just sheer form in terms of like, right, who's won the races, who's got the best jockey. I ultimately am really unsure where to go. And what bugs me about where I have gone is that it's another damn Mullins horse. Like, at some point, I kind of have to stop. But I've gone with Kashari, because when you look at the weights and you look at the quality of race it's been in, but also the position it's been in, it's only been hit by £2 in the handicap. And that surprised me for the level of weight seen by the others, and also some of the races that it's gone with. But it's a bit of an unknown entity as well, because when it ran, it hasn't been seen for a while, which goes against some of my logic from day one. But when it did last run, the jockey lost the stirrups. And so basically it was a complete, you're basically going to lose from that point, but still managed to gamely keep it in sixth. And I just feel like, if there was a potential that it still ran well when the jockey's fully on board, it hasn't been hit because it's only been hit by £2 with the handicapper. Is there something there? Maybe. And, looking at the kind of price, I appreciate it's like second, third favorite, but I think there's something good there. So yeah, hopefully there's value in Kashari, but I think there's something to come from that.
Well, one way or another, I think my bank balance is probably going to need a little bit of a bump by this point. Either a nice bump with some winnings or a nice bump because it's struggling. And in that case, this is one of those just going to pick by name, and I'm going for the Shunter, a horse that has raced well.
Your nickname at school.
Exactly. A horse that has raced well this season, won last time out in good style. Had a good win back in November at Cheltenham. So I think would prefer the ground to be on the softer side, but fundamentally, there's as much to like about it as there is anything else in this race. So at 11-1, it would be my each way tip. Now, in between that race,
for this. I'm excited for this if this is the transition.
Well, if you're excited, you know what, Sam, just take a breather, put the kettle on, and wait for the champion chase. Because then we've got yet another relatively heavy favorite with Chacun Pour Soi at 4-5, Altior 7-1, Nuba Negra at 8-1, Politologue, a horse that has never done well for me one way or the other, at 9-1, and put the kettle on at 11-1. Frank, I'll start with you because you know my history with Politologue. Where are you going?
So I am going favorite. I actually think this is the banker of the week over Monkfish.
Wow.
And part of the reason is I'm going to call Altior washed up and done. And once you do that, then you have Nuba Negra, whose last win is against a washed up Altior. So I'm not too concerned about that. And then you have Politologue. And I am not worried. Only Eddie worries about this horse. So as long as Eddie is nervous about that horse, then I'm confident it won't win. The minute Eddie gets, boisterous and there's no chance and this and that, it's not going to win again, then I back off and I back it.
Frank, there's no chance Politologue wins this race.
Then I'm going to hedge all of my bets to end with Chacun Pour Soi and Politologue so I don't end up killing Eddie. But look, I think it's a great horse and they are super high on it. Willie Mullins is very, very high on this horse, even more than Monkfish. And I think this is going to be a big win. And the prices are a little better than Monkfish at this point.
I don't disagree with you. Chacun Pour Soi has been extremely impressive, and the only fault, in a way, is it's the question mark over what has it beaten so far. That's kind of the issue that you have at the moment. Is it's won everything in fine style, but is it beating much? And is this the first time that it's going to be really tested against high quality opposition? And I'm going to agree with you and just say that my eye test, which doesn't matter what it's running against, shows that it's a great horse and that if it reproduces that performance, it beats almost anything. But I can understand a little bit of concern on an odds-on horse where you really don't feel like it's proven itself against a group of horses of this class. But Chacun Pour Soi pour moi. I wasn't even meaning to do it.
Oh, that's great.
But
Chacun Pour Soi pour moi.
But some reservations.
Take it one further. Has it done anything outside of Leopardstown? No. I don't think it's barely been out of Leopardstown. I think almost all of its wins have been at Leopardstown as well. But look, Frank, I think you've mentioned it before. Like, can you do it on a cold Tuesday night or a wet Tuesday night in Stoke?
Just to correct you there. Okay. It has also won at Cork, and it has also won at Naas.
Okay.
So just
okay.
So but that, suck it,
okay,
Sam.
Fine. Okay, it hasn't done much outside of Leopardstown. It's won 2 races, but here's my point: it's never run Cheltenham, and there is something about the Cheltenham Hill that does matter. There is a genuine feel that when something starts to go up that hill at the end, the adjustment, if you've done it before, could matter. And that's a question mark over the horse for me, is that it's in really good company. I agree with the sentiments on Altior. Like, I think it's an age thing with Altior. I just think it's a really unfortunate thing that it had the injury and it's come back, and obviously it's gone into a group of horses that are just really good. But Nicky Henderson is really adamant on it. He's like, that was exactly the run it needed. Like, Nubra Negra, fine, beat it, but it was the run it needed, and he saw no problems with Altior's run. However, I don't actually see that much of a problem with Politolog. So, won last year, fine. It was a pretty easy version of the chase. But since then, it's won the Tingle and it's won the Clarence House at Ascot. It's won them pretty well. It's 9-1. It's in much better company. But I think there's a value bet there. Now, I have the issue of, do I continue with my Mullins charge where he wins basically everything at Cheltenham? Or do I at some point have to think that there's value here? I think there might be value in Politolog. So I think I'm going to go Politolog to win. It's done nothing wrong, and it's
to win or each way.
I think I'd have to go each way with the value at 9-1, but I just think it's done nothing wrong, and if anything, it's actually won the Tingle and the Clarence in good company, on top of winning the Champions Chase last year. So I think there's each way value in Politolog. But if I was going to go for a winner, you'd have to say Chacun Pour Soi.
Or even Chacun Pour Soi. But yeah,
no, it's different horse.
Look, Sam, question marks about how you pronounce some French words. And there might be some question marks about whether you're Saint Sam. But there are no question marks about whether or not you are out Sam. So with that in mind, we turn our attention to the cross-country chase, where out Sam is 33-1. You have Easy's Land, a horse that Sam has tipped in the past. It was a bet of the week at one moment for him, and I think was withdrawn.
It lost.
It lost. You have Tiger Roll at 4-1, Potter's Corner at 5-1, Some Neck by 12-1, Balco de Floss at 14-1, and all the rest.
Are you sure that's how you say it?
No, Balco de Flows, and all the rest at 20-1. You know, it's the tough thing about some of these names is not saying them it's the familiarity with them, obviously, but not saying them in the moment. It's when you run through a number of them quickly, and then that's when it hits you. But yes, all the rest are 20-1 or bigger. So, Sam, sticking with your previous bet of the week, or are you doubting it now?
I'm not doubting it. I think Easy's Land is a really good one for this. Also, the cross country, it annihilated it last year, and that was one of the reasons I tipped it up. It was his first run back. But what was interesting about that first run back is that it jumped terribly, which is very unlike it. And it just plowed into fences. It wasn't jumping over them. It was really going into them, and that just kills all momentum. The horse won't run. It really changes it. And especially in a cross country where the undulations, haven't used that one for a while. The undulations are ridiculous. That's going to really matter. But I think it's going to have a long break. It's had a long break since it last went out. And I think it will still be the horse to beat here. I don't know, Frank, if you're taking the field because Tiger Roll's in there.
I've got, before you ask Frank that question, are you not concerned by the fact that it hasn't had a run since that disappointment, which is either it's a good sign, all has gone well and it's training well and they're just very happy with it, or they're unsure of it and they've just decided, well, this is where it has to be thrown back in because if it's not going back to Cheltenham, what are we doing with it? Also very interesting that Kingsworld Theatre, who beat it so emphatically last time out, is 33-1 for this race.
There are some interesting horses at the back that run this well, and Kingsworld Theatre is one of them. Yes, it is a massive concern that the connections haven't ridden it. It's not like they're riding it. Haven't put it out there since it.
If Gordon Elliott's around, you never know.
I was waiting for that. I'm genuinely amazed that we got halfway through day 2 and we haven't seen anything about Gordon Elliott on a horse. But I think the reason it's high up in the field is just because of the respect it deserves from that time it won last time. And the connections have come out and said that, what's it called? Cotton, isn't it? Have said that it needed that. So yes, there's reservations that we haven't seen it again, but I think it just commands respect from its previous win at Cheltenham last time. Just a note, by the way, this is arguably my favorite race because it's the most unique there. It's great to go like to the inside of Cheltenham and see them go around all of these obstacles. But Eddie, my question to you would be like, what are your odds in the cross country chase?
This is not one that I would say with any confidence. It would be a stay away despite the short-priced nature of the favorite. But I will be sticking with Easy's Land just out of the fact that I don't know. I'm staying well away from Tiger Roll, who just seems a complete spent force at this point. And I think that I'd side with the idea that it was that the race, the appearance earlier in the season was the blip, and that their class will show at Cheltenham. But it certainly won't be a race or a horse that I'm sticking into any doubles or trebles, and it won't be something that, unless I am well up by this point on day 2 of Cheltenham, that I am making any sizable bets on.
Yeah, I'll complete the threesome. I'll stick with Easy's Land as well. It was giving a ton of weight away in that race that it got 4th in. First race back, it'll definitely be fitter from that. And it's now on level terms with Potter's Corner. I think it was giving up over 14 pounds to Potter's Corner when Potter's Corner got 2nd to Easy's Land's 4th in the last race. So, I mean, that's a huge amount for a, almost 4-mile race. So, I think Easy's Land will take it. I will not be backing Tiger Roll.
Wow, true to form.
Well, even if Easy's Land is turned over, in any case, or in French, as we might say, en tout cas, by the Grand Annual, I'm sure we'll be all having another bet. You've got Sky Pirate at 7-1, en tout cas at 7-1, Embittered at 7-1, the Shunter, who I've already picked for a race, at 15-2, Zanza at 8-1, and all the rest are 14-1 or bigger. Frank, what's your move?
Yes, the classic Johnny Henderson Grand Annual Challenge Cup Handicap Chase. A classic in my book. I lick my chops every year to betting on this. I've got not much here. I mean, this is another one of those large handicap. It just scares the living hell out of me. I'm going to just stay away.
The tip is passed.
Well, you have to pick up. You have to make a pick.
All right. I'm going to go with a way outsider, and I'm going to go with a. There we go. Henry de Bromhead, Capuchimix at 33-1.
I think it might be Capuchimix.
Capuchimix, and it's 25, so you don't get 8 points on it.
33 at Ladbrokes, the official sponsor of podcast.
No, that doesn't work like that. What's wrong with you? That's 33-1.
So, interesting race though, because it is 1 mile 7. It's an under 2 mile chase, and it's on the older course as well, so it means it's a sharper chase. Like, this is a weird one. It's quick, and it makes it quite hard to pick horses on it. But there's actually one horse, like, looking through this, as Frank mentioned, this is a tough race. I don't believe, since I think I saw a stat like since 1950 or something like that, no horse has run it twice. So it kind of gives you an idea of like how varied the winners are. But there's one horse I really liked in here. Is 16-1 called Iblio. Let's go with Iblio. It's lost meaning now, so it's fine. I like it because its 4 recent runs are 2 seconds, 2 firsts. But what I liked is that all of them were in class 2s, and every single time it was getting hit harder and harder in the weights. They're all on soft ground. So if the ground is soft, you've got a horse that can run in more than capable company every time with harsher weights on it. So I think it's only had a slight bump up because it was really heavily penalized in this last one. So I don't think the British Handicap has done too much to it. So if the ground softens or stays soft, I think there's good value there on a consistently good horse that defies weight expectation. So I'll go Iblio at 16-1.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It will be unfamiliar to many people as well because of the fact that traditionally this horse has always been raced on the Friday. So this is a new position for it on Wednesday. So it might be one that people kind of aren't used to appearing where it is and having such a wide open handicap as the second to last race on the second day. Very, very tough to try and pick a winner. I'm going to opt for Sky Pirate, who has been a little bit unpredictable, but has been near on unstoppable since dropping back to 2 miles. So could just be a complete flop on the day, but I'll trust that it's 7-1 might actually be getting some decent value there. So the nice thing about this race, right, is no matter which horse you're taking, you can go each way and you're okay. But that's going to be my move.
Good name.
Sky Pirate.
I like that.
Now, in the final race of the day, it might be hard to pick a winner, but with a little bit of fine casting, you might be able to pick the right horse. So, Sam, with my weakest segue and weakest pun, we've got another relatively heavy favorite in, well, I guess you have 15-8 and 2-1. So 2 horses very strong at the top of the market. Where are you going?
I don't think the bumper gets the kind of credit it deserves because this is like the most prestigious one on the calendar. So for people that don't know, kind of the bumper is the one where they just run essentially over a long distance. It's almost like a precursor before you start jumping. It's a case of your endurance running. And what I like about this race is, again, it's similar to the one we discussed about the Ballymore Novices Hurdle that at the start of the day, is that Envoy Elan, Champagne Fever, and Q Card have won this race. So it's always cool to look at some horses and maybe track them from this race just to see what happens from it. And it's a really good opportunity to see kind of younger horses, relatively speaking, for jumps and kind of track them. And this is being billed as like a 2-horse race, right, between Kilcrew, and Sir Gerhardt.
Kilcrew, I think, yeah.
I see it as a 2-horse race when I look at their form and I look at what's going on. But for me, I'll go Kilcrew because when you look at the way and the commentary around how it won its races at Leopardstown, I can't remember the other one. I think it was somewhere good like Nace or somewhere like that. Not only did it win it well, but it won very well kind of powerfully at the end, but also it did it against good opponents. Quite a few of them are actually running in these races, which is why you've got 2 horses that have beaten a lot in this race. So I think it's a shootout between the 2, but I'll go Kilcrew because I think it's won more impressively in its outings.
Yeah, Kilcrew's last performance at the beginning of February at Leopardstown was one of the most impressive performances of the season and probably one of the more dominant performances you'll ever see in a bumper. The ease with which it won, the fact that it was still on the bridle and just absolutely cruising. If it in any way replicates that performance, then it's going to be incredibly difficult to beat. For that reason, I'm going to agree with you and side with it. Tough one because it does look like Sir Gerhardt's a very decent horse in its own right as well. So it wouldn't stun me if Sir Gerhardt were to win. But based on that last performance, I have relatively good confidence in Kilcroot winning this one.
Let's be clear about it. That's the horse that Kilcroot beat by 13 lengths, 14 lengths that Eddie said looked amazing. Sir Gerhard also beat, let's be clear about it, in its last race out by about 3 to 4 lengths. So if you just put that up at face value, Kilcroot looks much the better horse. I mean, obviously, when you have these younger horses in these bumpers, there could be some progression and things like that, but that was a pretty dominating performance. And when you have the exact same horse come in second each time, you can at least compare a little bit. And so for that, I think I'll go Kilcroot as well.